Good afternoon. On behalf of Engineers Australia, I'm delighted to welcome you all to today's webinar, Building Inclusive Pathways in Engineering. My name is Amanda and I'll be your host for today. Firstly, in keeping with our custom, Engineers Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to them and their cultures and to elders past and present. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that today's webinar is being hosted with Engineers Australia's industry partner, UNSW. For over 75 years, UNSW Engineering has been Australia's leading hub for engineering education and research and has consistently been ranked #1 nationally. They offer the broadest range of engineering degrees in Australia and lead in cutting-edge research in fields like renewable energy, AI, and biomedical engineering, to name just a few. A key priority for UNSW is driving diversity in the profession, recognising that diverse teams foster innovation and better solutions. Through their commitment to progress for all, they actively support inclusion and equity, preparing engineers of the future who reflect and serve the needs of our diverse society in a fast-changing world. Today's session will feature a panel discussion followed by a live audience Q&A. And I encourage you to send questions through to our speakers via the YouTube chat box. I'd now like to welcome our panellists for today's discussion. Please welcome our first panellist, Rebecca Cook, Ground Terminal and Infrastructure Manager, Digital Hardware Engineer, Northrop Grumman. Rebecca was awarded the 2025 UNSW Women in Engineering Ada Lovelace Medal for Outstanding Engineer. Rebecca served as a systems specialist with Northrop Grumman in support of critical space programs for both the US and Australia, and is passionate about mentoring the next generation. Rebecca brings over 2 decades of engineering experience and is passionate about mentoring the next generation. Please welcome our second panellist, Danny Alexander, Chief Executive Officer, UNSW Energy Institute. Danny is also a director and incumbent chair of the Energy Research Institute's Council for Australia, a board member of the Energy Efficiency Council, and an advisory board member of the Energy. She has a diverse background in energy sector roles, including positions in universities, government, and industrial cooperative research. Danny has a deep knowledge of a wide range of energy technologies, including renewable energy generation, energy storage, clean fuels, and grid transformation. Welcoming our third panellist, Julian Harb, Program Manager, UNSW Engineering. Julian's career background is in education broadly, where she studied and worked as a high school teacher in New South Wales and in implementing initiatives and strategies supporting equitable access to education. Gillian is committed to supporting women and non-binary and gender diverse students to aspire to and thrive in engineering, from outreach through to creating a culture of belonging throughout their degree and into the future and their careers. Welcoming our fourth panellist, Ethan Haar, UNSW engineering student. Ethan is a penultimate student at the University of New South Wales, pursuing a dual degree in mechatronic and biomedical engineering. Through rigorous studies, Ethan has learned that engineering impacts a far greater demographic than most people would assume or even realise. It's about designing solutions that improve quality of life, fostering collaboration across disciplines, and creating systems that are sustainable, inclusive, and impactful for all. I'd now like to welcome our moderator for today, Megan Lord. Associate Dean, Research and Academic Director, AGSC, Industry PhD Programme, Faculty of Engineering, UNSW. Last year, her pioneering of this programme garnered national recognition with the prestigious award from the Australian Council of Graduate Research for excellence in leadership in graduate research. Additionally, Megan holds an Australian Research Council Future Fellowship, a distinction bestowed upon 100 top mid-career researchers in Australia annually. With a passion for nurturing emerging engineering talent, Megan has trained over 2,000 biomedical engineers at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels. I'll now hand it over to you, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, for that introduction, and I'm very excited about the panel discussion we'll have with these esteemed engineers and emerging talent. What I wanted to share with you now is a couple of slides about engineering's commitment to UNSW's commitment to engineering education. We firmly believe no matter gender, background, postcode, education is for all. And our engineering program has come a long way, certainly from the time back in the early 2000s that I was an engineering student at UNSW. We are very focused on future skills for our engineers as we go through rapid change in the industry, not least impacted by AI, and it's going to continue to impact our sector for years to come. We want our education to have impact, to understand where our learning fits in society and how it can change society for the better. We're also focused on accessible learning, flexible, high-quality experiences, acknowledging that today's student is balancing study with a home life and work. So breaking down those barriers of in-classroom learning to also be online experiences, much like we're having today. Essential to all of this is belonging and connection. We know that our students find it extra tough when they don't have a community to draw upon, to learn from, to be included with, and importantly, to have fun along the tough journey. Next slide, please. So UNSW is committed to providing underrepresented students with equitable opportunities. I didn't realise until I started studying engineering that I was an underrepresented group. Until that point in time, I'd just been a normal girl studying at school, admittedly in an all-girls school, and suddenly coming to an engineering degree, I was a minority. There was boys everywhere, but I was never short of a date for the engineering ball. But what we want to do in all seriousness in UNSW engineering is to widen opportunities for participation of our future students. And we'll hear a little bit more today about what those programs entail. And as we've touched on, building a community of students, connections to industry, and also financial support where we're able to, for current students, to create the opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have. So over the past few years, we've seen an increase in the applications from students from disadvantaged backgrounds. We've had a focus for a long time of increasing the proportion of women who study undergraduate engineering. And I was involved in the very early days, some 13 years ago, of setting up the Women in Engineering program to recruit more girls to study engineering. And we've also had a long focus on Indigenous students, and that's really been ramped up in the last year or so to build this cohort of our Indigenous engineers to study and set them on new career trajectories. Last slide, please. So as I mentioned, our Women in Engineering program has been operating for a long time now, and I was pleased to share with you a few statistics. We've had a program of industry sponsored scholarships for girls to study undergraduate engineering, and pleased to report we've offered 370 of those to date. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner, we have had an increase in the proportion of women who enter into our undergraduate engineering degrees, and critically, retention. So you see our statistic, 92% retention rate for female students, and you see that also in the numbers on the bottom left-hand corner. So UNSW, with its long history of this program, has beaten the national average. Now we've got about 24% women studying engineering. And among the most popular are chemical engineering and biomedical engineering. And I have to admit, I studied chemical engineering and biomedical engineering during my time. So this is a great indication of the success we can have with dedicated programs to capture the imagination of girls while they're still in high school to then come and study engineering at university levels. And we're looking to amplify this type of initiatives into other diverse groups of people, to broaden diversity beyond gender to every pattern that you can think about of diversity. So we can close the slides now. Great. And let's head into the discussion, which I'm really excited about today. Danny, may I start with you? As in your role with industry experience, how do inclusive environments contribute to productivity, innovation, and enhance business outcomes?
Thank you, Megan. I love this question because I see that productivity really feels like it's the heart of the government's agenda at the moment. And we're seeing this come through very strongly in the public sphere. At the end of the day, productivity is about getting more from what we've got. And you mentioned innovation as well. That's one of the core attributes of being able to achieve this higher productivity agenda. At the core of this in the workplace, though, it feels to me that the best that we can do, the easiest lever to pull in productivity is actually to have happy people who feel safe because they will do better work and be more productive. I think this is really important to distinguish between, I guess, the day to day, because it does benefit the day to day if people feel happy and safe. And that is crucial. But I think we also need to feel safe to try new things, be innovative. To bring us back to the context of this discussion and the opportunity for diversity, I think it's safe to say that more diverse workplaces, cultures are more productive. However, there's a question here about what happy looks like for different people. And so the question I'm often reflecting on is, well, if we have a more diverse workforce, workplace, how can we make sure that our diversity and happiness is accommodated as well?
Thanks, Danny. That's a beautiful opening. Rebecca, can I just turn to you to add to this? Because really, for organisations to invest in diversity, there has to be a benefit to the organisation.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Megan, for having me. I'm going to approach this from a slightly more logical take, is that if you have an inclusive and diverse workforce, you have a pool of individuals to pull from who all have different takes on troubleshooting and problem solving. So from a productivity, innovative standpoint, and for overall, business outcomes, you now have different options and takes that you can pursue that might increase business or increase productivity and how business is conducted. You have all of that talent and different idea pool that you can utilize to perhaps do things smarter, more efficiently, more sustainably, and those kind of logical, practical reasonings for having that diverse workforce is a complete no-brainer to me when you want to have a group of individuals that you're relying on for your business outcome, right? So I think that kind of take on it is a really easy one to look at from a business perspective. you want as many options and possibilities to do your business successfully.
And Rebecca, if we just stay with you and picking up on Danny's wording on a happy place. And so in today's workplace, we're hearing in the media burnout, overwork. And I've done back-to-back online meetings today and set to go until late this afternoon. So how do inclusive workplaces support well-being to retain talent? Because organizations invest a lot in recruiting, developing, and the key thing is to retain that talent.
Absolutely. So if your goal is to keep that diverse pool of individuals working for you and being productive, they have to be happy and they have to feel included and valued. There's a bunch of different methods you can go through this, but it really starts at all of the manager and leadership levels to make sure that your team feels included, valued, that when they do come up with ideas, maybe it might be off the wall crazy solution for something, that it is thoroughly thought out and that their input is appreciated. And those little things are really important to do at every level imaginable, whether it's people that work for you or people that work with you as part of a team. That's really a general mindset that needs to be maintained and worked on by the workforce itself to make sure that their teammates know that they're respected and relied on and that their input, their insight, their contribution is valued. So
Yeah,
it's a
really
really
valuable.
hard balance to make.
Yeah, I know in my own research team at UNSW, just having away days where we challenge ourselves and have vulnerabilities is really important in creating that inclusive workplace environment. And so earlier this year, my team voted to go and do the high ropes at Taronga Zoo. I was the only one that fell off. And so I think it was really great that the team saw my vulnerability in an environment that they wanted to be in. So, Danny, do you have any personal experiences of inclusive workplace environments and how they've supported people?
Mm. Well, I mean, I can speak from my own experience at the moment at UNSW, and I'm so pleased that we're supporting this initiative because it goes to, I think, the overarching values that I've experienced here in my role. Maybe if I were to give 3 examples of how I've seen this play out in practice that go back to your questions around productivity and innovation within that. I would say I was surprised last year when I was going through a leadership program that we are all encouraged to participate in. I was challenged to give examples of where I have or where I could actually take a different approach than what is the status quo. And it's not something that I had been asked for from an organization before. And I thought that was really wonderful. In my yearly reflections, when you do your performance assessment, I also need to report back on how in my role I've been able to demonstrate embracing or promoting diversity. And in the messages that are coming through from the executive, I'm also regularly seeing the values in action, reflecting principles like thinking the best of people's actions, understanding that everyone is trying their best, and then that helps, I think, when you're trying to accommodate very diverse perspectives, if you are always thinking the best of those people that you're working with.
Yeah, that's a really nice comment. So, Rebecca, just back to you before we include some of the other people in discussion. How is your organisation structured to recruit and develop diverse talent through the transition, mostly from a university education into the workforce?
Um, so there are a lot of teams that go out and do industry days at universities. One of the key elements I think that makes it the most productive is they ask teams for volunteers. So it's not a task that's assigned to someone. They ask folks to sign up specifically to do this kind of work so that you have someone who is, you know, encouraging and excited about reaching out to younger generations. And they end up pulling a very diverse pool of engineers to go out to these universities. So, and I think what that does as a benefit is one, you have passionate engineers who are excited to go speak to the younger generations, and also the representation of the diverse backgrounds of individuals who sign up for these tasks shows any interested young students that there is diverse pools of people that work in this industry and that they can see themselves represented in the teams that actually go out to recruit. So I think those are probably the most beneficial as part of that outreach kind of program. So it's not just that they go out to speak, it's who goes out to speak that I think is important.
Yeah, really nice. So I agree with you completely. Open day at university is the highlight of my calendar. It is, and it was just last weekend. It's so much fun talking to engaged future students and telling them what their experience might be in the next few years at university. So let's bring Jolene into the discussion now. And can you tell us about UNSW Engineering's vision for fostering diversity inclusion and the initiatives we have underway?
Thank you, Megan. So I think I might start by calling out what I think is a huge positive in that UNSW Engineering's vision doesn't exist in isolation. It's informed by and aligned to a whole of university approach to equity. And that includes tangible strategies and initiatives that are in place to really improve the lives of our current and future generations, really make that difference. Some big things that are in place are our gateway admission pathway, which is increasing the proportion of students from socioeducationally disadvantaged backgrounds across the domestic cohort, things like inclusive teaching guides to empower academics to support diverse cohorts when they do get to UNSW, and also things like a bespoke inclusion at UNSW training suite that really upskills students and staff in order to contribute to that inclusive environment. I think it's against that backdrop that there are specific engineering initiatives currently in place. Across the faculty, we have a really strong focus on our equity cohorts, on students from socioeducationally disadvantaged backgrounds, on students who are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, and also students who are women, non-binary, and gender diverse. So in that future student space, we're really focused on developing, implementing, and funding widening participation activities and initiatives. And that can look like immersion days, it can look like immersion weeks, it can look like networking events, workshops, work experience as well. And that's just to name a few. And what I might call out is something that kind of I oversee and something that's in my area, which is the Young Women in Engineering Club. We spoke earlier about community and how important that is for people to see and be championed by those who've gone before them. And that's a great opportunity for high school students to connect with current women in engineering students, to be invited along to events and workshops and networking opportunities, and to really inspire, engage, and empower them. We kind of extend that support as well to our current students. That can take the form of building community through events and through one-on-one check-ins. It can be things like academic enrichment, and we try and incorporate a by students for students approach. We also make sure to bridge that connection and bridge that divide between tertiary education and industry by providing our current students with opportunities to connect with industry, to be mentored by them, to kind of have their voices heard. And finally, where possible, we love to offer financial assistance to ensure that everybody can access an education without barriers. And, that might look like textbook vouchers in one instance or scholarships in another. Those are just some of the things that we have in place.
Great, Jolene, and as you know, I've been a long supporter of the Women in Engineering program, and it really stems back from my experience in high school, attending a Girls in Engineering summer camp at Wollongong University. And it wasn't until then I'd really considered a career in engineering. And after that, I was sold. There was nothing else that I would have on my list of things to do. So these opportunities for future students do change careers and are really important. And so, Ethan, bringing you in now, can you share the journey that led you to study engineering at UNSW?
Yeah, of course. Can everyone hear me? Then that's yes. So as a child, yeah, I was diagnosed with asthma. And because of that, I was really reliant on ventilators and puffers to really do any sport. So I knew that when I grew up, I wanted to do something to give back to the community that kept me healthy as a child. So in high school, I weighed a few different professions. This included medicine, physiotherapy, and science. But I was also really aware of my strengths and weaknesses, which is why I also considered engineering. I really like math and physics. So I also really wanted to do something related to health, which is why I landed on biomedical engineering, which is pretty much the intersection between healthcare and engineering. Now, I graduated high school all the way back in 2020, so it's been a while, but I actually entered UNSW through the Gateway admission pathway, which, as Julian mentioned, is an alternative entry pathway for students from a low socioeconomic area, such as me.
Engineering and medicine, and why I am still in biomedical engineering today, many decades later. So back to you, Ethan. You've had a really interesting story of coming in via the gateway. Could you tell us a little bit more about the initiatives that have been most beneficial to you during your time at university?
Yeah, no worries. So I remember in my very first year, I was actually a recipient of an equity scholarship that was valued at around $5,000. And pretty much what that meant for me, I could spend that monetary resource on, university resources. I remember I built myself a brand new computer because my old one wasn't able to run all the programs and softwares I needed to study engineering effectively. That was really, really good. And I was also a participant in a peer mentoring program in first year, which gave me extra tutoring and help support for my physics and math classes. And I think above all else, the biggest program that has impacted me the most was UNSW's University Ambassador Program. I myself am a university ambassador, and it's not so much that, well, yes, I did gain a lot of communication and presentation skills out of it, but I think for me, as a university ambassador, the most important and most valuable thing I gained was actually, gaining friends. Yeah, because as university ambassadors, we were chosen and recruited because all the university ambassadors also came from a low socioeconomic area and also entered UNSW through the Gateway Mission pathway. So having the ability to meet other students that had a similar background to me was really, really made it really easy for me to connect with them. And yeah, I made lifelong friends through being a university ambassador.
Thanks, Ethan. It's really nice to hear of your ambassador role, experience how it's contributed to your professional development, your networking, and your community. And it's a really important initiative that we do through sending our ambassadors out to high schools to be the voice of the potential of engineering to our high school students. And we really find that the peer-to-peer networks that it creates is much more valuable than old academics like me going out to the high schools. So we've talked a little bit now about how universities play their role in creating the pipeline. And of course, we've got a lot further to go to get to 50-50 in all the diversity measures that society at large presents. I want to come back to Rebecca first and to understand from your personal perspective, what's the biggest difference that happened in your early career that helped you feel included, valued, and confident in the workplace?
Ooh, this is a bit of a tricky question, and it could also just be a me problem, but confidence is one of those things that always seems elusive. Um, and I joke with a lot of folks that it's a lot of fake it till you make it. And that could just be my own personal insecurities. But realistically, there wasn't just one specific moment. It would be perhaps there was a senior engineer that I would look up to who would trust me to handle a project. I would get assigned a task and just left to my own devices. And at that point, something inside you goes, oh, they trust me enough that I can handle this on my own. So it's really a combination of kind of little things that happen over time, um, that kind of build up your own self-worth, where you don't think you've got it. Someone believes in you just a little bit enough to be like, oh, I can do this. I've got this handled. So I don't think there was ever any big defining moment. It was the individuals who I looked up to and recognized as the subject matter experts on a specific system, a specific task, who then trusted me enough to handle it. So it's those little kind of things that leaders and mentors can do that can instill just a tiny sliver of confidence that can help get you over the line, and eventually it'll hopefully build up to where I feel like I'm the expert that others and younger engineers might look at me to be. So, but it's always a constant learning, growing kind of experience where you never feel like it's enough. Um, but once again, it could also just be a me problem. So.
No, Rebecca, your comments absolutely resonate with me. The fake it till you make it. I feel like that's still me. Every new situation I'm in, I was like, okay, well, someone believes I can do this, so of course I can. So I pretend that I can until I feel confident.
Absolutely.
And
And
I
having
think what
those folks around you is really what helps kind of bolster that, and eventually it grows. It's a really slow process, but
Yeah, and this term of champions, which is really what you've described by your senior colleagues, your leaders that have had trust in you, they're really championing that you can do it. And I think this is a new valuable concept of champions versus mentors, which are more on the sidelines, where your champions are actually putting you up for opportunities, which is great.
mhm.
Danny, do you have some perspectives to share here?
Yeah, I would agree with Rebecca, and I might get to that at the end of my response. But having reflected on this question and my earlier career, I came up with three things that I think really helped me build my confidence, and that I've seen in others as well. The environment that I started in was in a government environment, and in my early career, I found that I was built up by feeling listened to uh, when I was skilled up, and then when I felt like I was trusted. So I had come from a science background. I had a microbiology major and an international business major, and then I found myself in the energy department uh, because I was passionate about climate change. But I realized early on that this particular technology, advanced biofuels, actually aligned really well with my science background. Microbiology was all about algae and yeast and how you could make biofuels out of sugarcane trash. And I spoke to my GM at the time and I said, look, I think I'm really well suited here. And he put me into the team with the biofuels programs. I then wanted to do more in this space. And so I got the opportunity to be sponsored in my master's of biotechnology at the time. So I was skilling up. And then when the opportunity arose and the Renewable Energy Agency was established, I found myself moved in there, and the incoming CEO, who had come from outside the government, had a few chats with me. He said, "You know what? I think I trust you to run the bioenergy portfolio for the agency. Would you be comfortable to do that?" And I thought, similar to what you were both saying, that well, if they think that I can do it, then I think I can do it too. And I took the opportunity and I ran with it, and I feel like that was a sound basis for the rest of my career.
Yeah. Some really great gems there, Danny. And I particularly what resonates with me is being listened to. So in the few situations where I haven't felt included in the workplace is really when decisions have been made for me without including me in those decisions. And that happened to me around going on maternity leave. And so I was involved in certain committees in the workplace. And then because I was going on leave, the decision was made that I should be removed from those committees without actually asking what I would like. So I think that being listened to is key, and hearing the perspectives of everybody in whatever situation it is. And we've talked a lot about being asked to do things and having the trust of our more senior people to be included in things. What I've also found as I've got more mature in life and more confident in myself is asking for opportunities. And I think this is another valuable aspect to bring to this discussion. And it wouldn't have been something I was confident enough to do early in my career. And so I think creating that environment where people do have the confidence to speak up and ask for opportunities is important as well. So, Julian, let's come back to the university and what we're doing with shaping students' careers. So, what role does diversity inclusion at the university level play in shaping a person's journey towards a successful career after education?
Look, I really don't think I can answer this question without sharing a little bit of my personal experience first, because that's what drives everything that I do, and it's kind of what informs how I operate in order to support students and empower them for a future of success, whatever success looks like in their context. So for me, I went through schooling and tertiary education with considerable socioeducational disadvantage. I am from a culturally and racially marginalised background here in Australia, and for some time now, I've been a woman in STEM. And that lived experience of mine has given me firsthand experience of what it's like to exist in an environment or operate in a workplace where diversity isn't valued. Inclusion isn't at the center of anything. They're both seen as unnecessary and in addition to core business as usual. And for people from minority backgrounds like myself, what tends to happen is that we revert into ourselves. We don't want to disrupt the status quo. We don't want to draw attention to ourselves, and we especially don't want to make ourselves a target. And that creates a bit of an echo chamber, limiting creativity. It ends up being the perspectives, the viewpoints, the ideas of people from the dominant group who are continuously being perpetuated, and that has a real impact on innovation. And as we can all agree, innovation is central to engineering, and it's really echoed in what a lot of you have already said about kind of wanting to be included, wanting to take an active role in making the decisions that impact you. And it's that idea that I really bring into the role that I play at this university, and I think also exists across the Faculty of Engineering here at UNSW. Building that safe and inclusive culture where people can be their authentic selves really underpins everything else that we do. It's not seen as a ticker box, it's not off to the side, it's embedded into every layer. And that includes how we operate and support our current students. What we really value and what we endeavour to do is bring them to the table, employ a students as partners model, and allow them to use their lived experience, use their own understanding of their needs and what it is that they require to provide advice and suggestions at every stage of the decision-making process. And on our end, we really work to embed that, because we shouldn't be making any decisions for them without them. Within kind of the role that that plays for our students and how they can then take that into their future within the engineering field, we're really hoping to model how you can make diversity and inclusion your core business, how it is that you can use it to underpin everything else that you do. And so our hope is that they feel empowered when they go into the workplace to really draw on their own lived experience, to use their diverse perspectives and their diverse understandings to challenge the status quo and to not do what I felt like I had to do in my early career, which was stand on the sidelines and let people speak on my behalf. So that's really, I think, what drives everything that we do here.
Thanks, Julian. So really what you're saying is to normalise diversity and inclusion in our everyday culture. And we've seen that in the Women in Engineering program, how the boys are often the biggest champions of the program when it comes to the university experience. So we've made some progress, but we know by the statistics that there is a long way that we can progress in this area. So, Julian, just back with you, and then we'll hear from the panel. what are the key challenges you see in achieving an inclusive culture, and any insights into the solutions?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. It's quite a loaded question. And look, in my opinion, it can go one of two ways. So, building that culture of inclusion and diversity is put in the too hard basket. It's not prioritized, nothing is done, and instead, places just hope that the goodwill of their employees is enough for people to feel included. You know, what we've all alluded to throughout this conversation is that that means people don't feel empowered to be their authentic selves. They're not able to then share diverse perspectives or solutions, which has significant impacts on the output of a company or an organization. The other way I think it could go is that building that culture of diversity and inclusion is seen as paramount, which is great. So a lot of time and energy and resources are put into kind of promoting that and building in initiatives and trying to shift kind of the way in which things are already being done. And so when results start to be seen because of all of that hard work, it then gets ticked off of a to-do list as achieved, no longer prioritized, and over time, things will revert back to the way they once were. And so, whilst I really wish I could give you some solutions, there is no one size fits all approach. So, what I can do is mention some best practice approaches that I encourage you all to embed into your own unique contexts. And my first one would be understanding that inclusion is an ongoing process and it is a deliberate act. It's not something that you can tick off a list and say that you've done it, so you no longer need to prioritize it. And what I would suggest is to make sure that you're centering the voices of those with lived experience, really bringing them to the table and making sure that you yourself are staying up to date with the changing and diverse needs of people who are coming from marginalized backgrounds, especially the way in which they intersect with each other. And I would also kind of recommend another best practice approach, which is viewing diversity as the asset that it is. When you have people from a wide range of backgrounds who have had diverse lived experience and they're coming to a place where they feel safe, where they feel supported to be their authentic selves, true innovation and true creativity can flourish, and that's going to yield positive results. So some things that you might want to consider are analyzing hiring practices to mitigate unconscious bias, and more to kind of my area, connecting with current students from underrepresented backgrounds in engineering, doing that through universities, really providing them with the opportunity to network with you and connect with you, offering them support in whatever way that you're able to. That might look like, champion programs, it might look like internships or scholarships if that is possible. And that's really going to change the pipeline of early career engineers that are then applying to your company, and we'll be able to see greater diversity happening in that space.
Thanks, Julene. Ethan, I'm keen for your perspectives on this as well. The key challenges. You're about to launch yourself into the engineering workforce in the next year. What are you worried about?
Yeah, so I feel like Jolene did touch on this a little bit, where some companies just sort of hope and pray that the employees are just able to be inclusive from the get-go. However, I don't really think that's the case, and I feel like because of that, it brings a lot of unconscious bias where you try and hope to be as inclusive as possible, but you can't be what you can't see. So that's where there's unconscious bias where, oh, you just happen to be not inclusive. That's how it comes about. And I feel like for me, that is probably the biggest challenge I can think of. And best practice or solutions that overcome that unconscious bias is, as Julian mentioned as well, having specific programs and dedicated resources that can empower people to feel comfortable enough to voice what they want to say and be able to say that, oh, I don't feel inclusive, and what a way we can mitigate that. That is what I think we can do to mitigate that unconscious bias when it comes to fostering an inclusive culture within engineering companies and workforces.
Yeah, Ethan, really wise words there. Just challenging we use the term unconscious bias, and being open to diversity in all its forms in the way we recruit and include people. And certainly my own experience earlier this year as I stepped into the Associate Dean leadership role and attended a forum with other deans across Australia, just feeling the unconscious bias that the gender difference in the room, and with managers on a professional scale were mostly female and the deans are mostly male. And so even in the networking events, you see the female professional managers gravitate towards me as the newbie, thinking I'm one of them, where in fact I sit on the other camp with the old male academic deans. So it's never an intention of somebody, I think, in many of these situations to exclude people, but just looking at the situation and the assumptions people make. So I think, Ethan, you make a really important point that we encourage people just to pause before they step into their normal behaviours and say, is this appropriate in this situation? Is really valuable. So, Danny, keen to hear your perspectives, challenges, and any solutions you can offer us.
Well, yeah, thank you. And yeah, I would echo the comments that have come before me. I suppose what I feel like I'm most concerned about is really the that diversity, equity, and inclusion is less prioritized or even under threat. In fact, this evening, as it so happened, I'm actually planning to go to an event that UNSW is hosting with the Australian Human Rights Institute's Provocation series, which is titled "Is the Pursuit of Diversity and Inclusion Dead?" And I am have even heard of some concerning reports of particular organizations rolling back initiatives that they already have, which from the conversations I have anecdotally is making people feel less secure and safe in their roles. I don't want to be a bad news story, but really I think at the beginning of this conversation we talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion being a driver of productivity. And it's really, I think it's the core, and there are great examples of this being a key pillar of business success. So, in terms of, what we can do, as I think we can continue to prioritize this as a really important area of focus. For us in the clean energy space, this is critically important, as we need to have everyone involved in tackling, what some of us call the moral challenge of our time. Analysis has been done on our energy workforce projections, and even in electricity, which is not everything, but just in electricity, research that has been done has shown that we need to have double the amount of people in our sector working on this challenge, from 33,000 to 66,000 people in lots of different fields working on just the electricity sector transformation. We just need absolutely everyone. So promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion so that we are able to draw in as many people as possible to help us in our particular sector is something that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, Danny, some really nice sentiments there. Old news, too hard. Bit depressing, but I'm hopefully this discussion is uplifting people that it isn't old news and it's not too hard, that we can do that. And this point, we need a workforce nationally and to foster international opportunities for our people as well, really resonates with me. So, Rebecca, keen for your view, your insights here.
Ooh, how do I add? Julian and Ethan were fantastic with their points, so I'm going to try and add on to a little bit of what they said, where I do believe it is a two-part process, where companies need to show that they are inclusive and are serious about it, and that they respect their workforce no matter their background, ethnicity, gender. None of that should matter. It's, are you qualified for the job? Are you good at what you do? Those are the basis of what a company should do. But that a slow demographic change is what's needed, because you need those people in positions so that the younger generations can see them and see how they're contributing and productive and successful, and that would encourage them to pursue that kind of background or career. So it's two parts. You need the seriousness and the backing of the higher levels of corporate to show that this is serious, this is how we treat our workforce. Everyone is treated, equitably, fairly, respected, valued. And then while slowly the demographics can change, that can you get those stubborn individuals in place that can make it happen. So it's a bit of a two-part process. So it's tricky to do because you need to get more and more people interested to join the career so that they themselves can be the change that can continue to improve the culture.
Yeah, really nice perspectives there, Rebecca, and the power of leadership and the power of the pipeline, and then the active leadership in this change. So using Danny's words of "it's old news, it's too hard," what have you seen beyond leadership and directive from leadership that can help with that is most effective in an organization?
We spoke about this during the pre-brief last week. I've seen a lot of programs that do not work and that fail before they get off the ground. What really makes a successful program is you need to include individuals who actually want to participate, who believe in the values, and have ideas that would resonate with the team. If a directive is sent from on high, a new corporate policy, a new training program, on occasion these get just assigned to an individual whether they want to do it or not as an additional duty, and then it turns out more like a chore. There's not the passion or the dedication to the actual cause behind it. You need to have individuals who are productive, where they can reach the team, they can make a direct impact, they know what will and will not work. Just flat corporate directives are never going to work, and they're always going to, if anything, damage the cause because people just see it as a chore and not a genuine change that would benefit not just their work, but their team, the environment that they work in. It's a delicate process, but you need to get the right person involved who can be passionate and drive that passion with the rest of the team. You also need to be able to contribute resources to back up whatever initiative that they know will work with boots on the ground. There's a lot of times where it's a go forth and do, but there's no actual backing, there's no actual contribution to make something that's actually sustainable or work for the team. So a lot of that kind of can hinder instead of actually uplift the message and the work that's should be done to improve the space.
Yeah, just echoing some really nice comments there about the right people. And that comes back to really the recruitment stage. So embedding questions so you get a sense of the person and how they're going to contribute to the culture is a really important one. And I've seen that in my own research team. There's 700 academics in engineering. And so a question I'll ask anyone who wants to join me is, why me? And the ones that I've often will take on will be, because you're a strong female leader and I want to learn from you. And so that's actually, they've invested in finding out something about me and what I stand for, and want to be part of that culture that I have in my team. The other one I think is really important to echo is that support. And what I've seen in my career, it's long range support. And so getting an initiative off the ground is not sufficient in itself. It needs to have long-term support at all levels for it to be sustained and effective. So Ethan, coming back to you, Engaging with future students can be a really powerful way to give back, and we've heard from Rebecca about how her organisation has people volunteer to go and do the outreach for the university for recruitment. You're doing the outreach for future students. Can you share with how being involved with future students has influenced your own experience and growth?
Yeah, so to share a bit about my responsibilities as a student ambassador for University of New South Wales, I pretty much go to high schools and run workshops for high school students. And this can range from year 10, 11, and 12. So obviously, I'm out in the front giving a presentation pretty much, talking about the university and my personal journey from high school to university. So obviously, I have seen growth in my communication and presentation skills, which is sort of the reason why I'm here today talking to a webinar of like, around 500 people. Really exciting. But in terms of skills relevant to engineering, I feel like being able to articulate my journey to a audience that is a little less technically inclined was super, super important because as engineers, yes, we are able to work with very technical, very complex systems, algorithms, things like that. But it's sort of useless if we can't communicate that to the right person, and we can't always expect that the person we're communicating to is of at the same technical level as we are. So being able to break down the jargon and communicate our work in layman terms, being able to do that with my personal journey to high school students has been really, really valuable as me professionally as an engineer, as I'm able to communicate with stakeholders about the engineering projects I'm working on. And I think above all else, being able to communicate and give back to high school communities really reinforce and helped me understand that me choosing engineering was the right choice, because I think above all else, the reason why I chose to do engineering was to help people. And I think the fact that I'm getting value from helping students as a university student myself really reinforces the fact that I chose the right career in engineering.
Thanks, Ethan. Some really warm, fuzzy words there about how your experience as an ambassador has helped you with your communication, and you can see how that's going to be applied as you move out into the workforce. So, audience, we'd love to hear some questions coming through from you on the chat. We have a few now to go through from the registrations. So I'm going to hand back to Amanda, but please get busy asking your questions.
Thank you. What a great discussion. And it's now your turn to get involved. So if you could please put your questions into the YouTube chat box and also let us know who your question is directed to. And also thank you to everyone who put forward questions when registering. And we might start with a couple of those. And Rebecca, we have a question starting with you, but also for Megan and Danny from Vivek, who is watching in New South Wales. So, good afternoon to you. I'm asking you, Rebecca, short term and medium term impact on AI and engineering.
Absolutely. So there's been a lot of talk about AI, and especially in engineering fields, there are a lot of folks who are worried. Um, One of the things I always like to talk about is that folks have been trying to just implement AI across the board for any sort of problem they think it could solve. But AI is, at the end of the day, a tool. It can be a very useful tool. It's also been proven to have its own flaws, whether it be with just incorrect information or some of the ethical concerns around how it's actually gaining its knowledge and how it's building its databases. Um, but there has been some amazing work that's been done with the assistance of AI. Just last year there was a couple, I think there was a rocket engine that was made that they printed and it fired on its very first go. That kind of work is amazing, but it was still a tool being used by a group of engineers, and it was able to help speed up the process of work. It can help double check any of your math or equations. It it just has to be utilized in a way that would be productive and bring value. It's still in its infancy, I would like to say. as it's been proven, there's still cases of it where it's had issues. And it's not an end all be all to everything just yet. We haven't reached Skynet levels just yet, but it can be a very fascinating tool to work with. It can be a very useful tool to work with. And I don't think it should be shied away from, but I don't think it should be relied on as heavily as it has been recently.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. Megan, do you have a view? Because I notice we have quite a few questions around this,
Yeah,
and
Rebecca had.
and are we ready for this world where the majority are challenged by this new environment?
Rebecca had some really nice comments here, and I think it's important to remember it's a tool and it's only as useful as we make it. And it's in its infancy of figuring out how useful it is in organisations. So I think my one message to the audience is to experiment. I'm a researcher at heart, and so we only learn by experimenting and researching to see what it can do for our organisations. I think the discussion about it's going to replace people is uncomfortable. What I'd see more is it's a way of changing how we work and has an opportunity to increase productivity. But like any other tool, it has the potential to decrease productivity as well if we don't use it efficiently to do our tasks as an organisation. And it's also one of the challenges the education sector is going through. The way we've traditionally relied on essay type responses to test knowledge from our students has totally been turned upside down in the education space. So in the university, we're going through this maturity of how to use AI and how to equip our students to use AI so that when they make it out into the workforce, they are using it ethically, responsibly, and for benefit for organisations. So I think we've got a way to go to understand the true impact that AI will have in the sector.
Thank you, Megan. Tanny, do you have a view? It's a big topic.
It's a big topic, and it's a big opportunity. It's very exciting. Building on Rebecca and Megan's great comments, I would just maybe also reflect back on the topic of this panel and the impact that AI might have in relation to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think as we know, AI has a huge pool of knowledge that it's drawing on, and there are ethical dilemmas that are associated with that. Yes, but I think we should also be mindful that that pool of knowledge, is broad, and it comes from a long time where we haven't necessarily been promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the same way. So I think what we've seen with the utilization of AI is sometimes what you get will be a biased outcome. And it's really important, I think, that that we use our human intelligence to augment that artificial intelligence, make sure that we are coming to this and addressing, again, a form of unconscious bias that is coming through from the data that is feeding in to the tools that we're using. Without that, I think we risk moving backwards before we're able to address it fast enough. So I would just encourage people to, again, use it, but don't stop thinking about it while you're using it.
Thank you. Yeah, good advice, good advice. Julian, a question is coming from Scott, watching in New South Wales, asking the rate of women in engineering hasn't changed for 30 years and has stayed at about 15% of grads in Australia. Does this suggest we aren't capturing the minds and hearts of women in primary schools and at early high school? How can we therefore capture the minds and hearts to do engineering early in life? Gillian.
Look, that's a great question. And I think that, yes, that is kind of one element of it. And, some of the things that we can do are really bringing in the people who are currently studying engineering or working in engineering who are from those underrepresented backgrounds, and having them go out to those schools and go out to those communities to share their journey, to share their story, similar to what Ethan's experiences have been as a university ambassador. But I also think there's something bigger at play here, and what may be a great strategy to approach this is a sector-wide approach to promoting engineering for young women, non-binary and gender diverse people, rather than operating in silos and everybody doing their own thing. Really coming together and understanding what it is we can do as a collective to not only engage prospective students with engineering and help them to see themselves as engineers, but provide them with the tangible academic enrichment that they need in order to kind of have the background knowledge and information and assumed knowledge to go into an engineering degree and thrive in it.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Rebecca. Megan, your view.
I really wanted to echo Julian's comments that the work we've done at the university is very much at the invitation of high schools to be able to get access to their students and promote the message, whether it's on site with them or encouraging the high school students to come and visit us on the university campus. And what we've joked in the university for some time is we need a television series to get the message out more broadly about what engineering is and how it is a relevant and rewarding career path for everyone. So really that lifting it up beyond the penetration we can get from invitations at the high school to a broader society understanding of what engineering is about and how it can lead to a rewarding career is very much needed.
Thank you, Megan. At Engineers Australia, a lot of feedback that we do get from the workforce is diversity doesn't seem too much of an issue when they first enter the workforce, with a lot of organisations very focused on their quotas, etc. And it's not till they're further into their career when a lot of, particularly women, leave engineering and join, in particular, financial services, feeling that there is a culture that fits them better than the traditional engineering company culture. Do you have any thoughts on that? Maybe starting with you, Megan, to kick it off.
Okay. Sure. Yes, I speak from experience of a lifetime in the university sector, and I would say that it's not an easy career path to remain an academic, particularly when you take time, as I did, out of the workforce to have a child and raise that child for some time. I say step out of the workforce, but I was fortunate that the university offers a 9-month maternity leave, and it was up to me to set how I would use that over 12 months. So I was actually back at the university 6 weeks after giving birth to my child and keeping my team going. And so for me, it was the ability to control how I worked over that period of part-time work that kept me within the organisation and keeping my metrics of academic success going. The other thing that was really valuable to me over that period of time was the university providing an extra staff member in my team, recognising that I was only working one day a week for a period of time. There was someone I could employ and trust to look after my team during that period of time. But what I see is it takes commitment from the organisation and leadership to recognise the value of somebody during a period where they can't be as productive for a period of time. And as we have an ageing population, this is going to affect more of the population as we, not just for child raising opportunities, but also caring responsibilities as we see our parents age and live much longer in life. So I think it's an important thing to think about it at various stages of someone's career about how we wrap around extra support to say they're trusted, they're valued, and how do we make their contribution over that period of part-time work. Yeah.
Thank you. Any thoughts from anyone else? Which is around our retention strategy. We've had a
Amanda,
question came. Yeah.
I'll back up what Megan said is that it definitely matters what your employer's actions are that can support individuals to make sure that they feel valued and want to stay with the team. So a lot of the folks that I've known who have changed careers or have left the profession, usually they're leaving for their own personal reasons or that they don't feel that the role suits them, and that's usually due to experiences they've had at their specific employer or specific workplace. So it's really important that employers and organizations support their team members and make them feel valued so that they do want to stay and continue to pursue their career.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Rebecca, we've had a question come in from Shane. Good afternoon to you. Asking you, Rebecca, nearly 50% of my team will be classified as diverse, and we love it. And I'm in the local uni, high schools and primary schools. Our issue is living in regional Queensland. How do we get people to come? We also have a cadet and graduate programs, but people don't want to leave the city and go regional. We're only 4 hours from Brizzy. Thanks, Shane. Great question.
Hi, Shane. Regional living is very difficult. I was in regional Australia for about 13 years, so I know recruiting and hiring for those kind of positions can be really, really difficult and really tough. Um, it it's it's really a hard kind of thing to sell to a lot of folks, especially people who grew up in the city, because they don't want to leave the amenities. But what you really kind of need to focus on are what's specifically special about your regional area. What can they experience? What can they do? One of my favorite things was we used to do like team camping trips out to the bush for stargazing, or there would be mountain bike treks that people would do as a team. So all those kind of team building activities and kind of cohesive unit building that you do as your team really helps kind of change the environment from just a work culture to it sounds a bit corny, but more of a familial culture where you're in a regional spot, but you create these bonds with the people you work with. Um, and you do things together that you can only do in regional Australia. And so those kind of small bits and pieces that you can lean on as a close team in the outback, those that can be really it can draw a certain type of person in that you want as part of your team that would be a good culture fit. It is really difficult, and I understand the pains and hardships of trying to recruit for those areas, but you need to find those little strengths that you can rely on to end up communicating those to potential employees that you would want to recruit. So best of luck. I know it's difficult.
Thank you. Thank you. Good advice. We've covered a lot this afternoon around the future of engineering and how belonging does matter. So I'd just like to invite our panel, starting with you, maybe Julene, and then Ethan, Danny, Rebecca, and Megan to bring us home as to what are the key takeouts that you would like to leave our audience with this afternoon, or maybe what they can take back to their environment?
Yeah, I love that question. I love a good takeaway. And for me, what I would really hope people take from this conversation is that things like inclusion and things like diversity are an ongoing process. There is no one thing that we can advise you to do or one solution that suits your unique context. But if you are committed to building that inclusive environment and valuing the diversity that naturally exists in the world, then you're going to be empowered to go out and speak to stakeholders, speak to external people outside of the world of engineering, see how they're doing it, speak to those with lived experience, and just know that that's something that's continuous, that's iterative. It's not, done by the end of this panel.
Thank you. Thank you. Ethan.
Yeah, so if I want to give one key takeaway for the participants in this webinar is the fact that you can't be what you can't see. So whether it's, you want to do engineering or anything else, you shouldn't let your background or prior experiences deter you from it. And when it comes to companies, having outreach programs to show, potential future students or future recruits what the company can offer is super, super important, because even if they're not considering engineering, you can't be what you can't see, for example. So opening that opportunity for them could, broaden their mindset and potentially put them down that pathway of engineering.
Maybe I can take the opportunity to build on what Ethan has just said, because I agree with that concept. And I think that putting people out and making them more visible can happen in different ways. I think on a day-to-day basis, identifying a more diverse group of people that can be put forward by organizations into, I guess maybe more, whether it's public in terms of the broader public or public within the organization, I think is really important. And I use this example because I'm also seeing that in a lot of conferences, we're seeing a lot less diversity in public speaking. So that's one example of this. This particular panel is not suffering for this issue, but absolutely it's something that I've seen in the sector over the course of the last 2 years. So finding your diversity within your organization and putting them forward, but not just as a token gesture. I would also say putting those people forward as they move through their career path is also crucial. In the clean energy sector, we're really lucky that we have 39% of our sector are women, but we just do not see that same level in leadership positions. I think putting people forward through their careers does take mentoring, but it also takes sponsorship or championship, I think was spoken about earlier. And I think that is what I would like to leave people with here today.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Rebecca.
I agree with what Julie and Ethan and Danny have said. There is the caution with tokenism. You do have to be really careful about that. You need to have the right people. You need to have the ones who want to do it, who are encouraging for others and their teammates. It can't just be an assigned duty. It has to be something that they sign up for. It's very important for that to be the main reason why that person is selected, because that passion, that enthusiasm will make a difference in the message that they convey. Something that I think is just important in general is that anyone who would have dialed into this panel and this webinar would be the type of people who agree with a lot of these kind of inclusion initiatives. And we are the ones who need to continue to push for change, continue to be the change that we want to see in the industry, and help encourage those who will come after. It's a never-ending process. We all have to work on it, and it's what we need to do to make it better for those who come after us.
Thank you. Thank you. Megan, your thoughts?
I really wanted to reinforce the comments from Danny and Rebecca, which are so valuable. In the university sector, it is very much on gender diversity and diversity on panels and committees. And every time I've been asked to join a committee because of my gender, I have said no. If anyone asks me to join a committee because of my expertise, I will say yes. I had two messages to give. One is to continually challenge your assumptions. Stop, pause, think about your assumptions before you make a decision, because that's where unconscious bias can be minimized. And my second one is within your teams. Remain curious, listen to them, trust them, and champion them.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And what an interesting discussion that we have had this afternoon. But it is all the time we have for today. So I'd like you to join me once again in thanking Megan, Rebecca, Danny, Jolene, and Ethan for their time and input. I'd also like to warmly thank Engineers Australia's industry partner, UNSW, for their support. As always, we're looking for better ways to do things, help us improve and plan for future sessions. So if you could take a couple of moments to complete the short feedback form linked in the description box below. Thank you again for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you at our next Industry Partners event. Thank you and good afternoon.